Hey there, First Take is on the road. As you can see, we are at Bills training camp in Rochester, New York. The boys are camping today. Day one of the fun has begun. Ready to get into it, gentlemen?
Always. We're ready now.
Or we'll continue. We're already into it. All right. In a sit-down with Jamel Hill, Ray Rice said that he remains hopeful he can return to the NFL, but he acknowledged that public opinion after his domestic violence incident presents a unique obstacle to his comeback attempt. Take a listen.
During the course of this, what was the low point for you?
The low point, the low point for me was the day the video the whole thing got released. I hadn't seen it. So, and to visualize, a night that you just, you just can't put into words. To visualize that. Yeah, I said it last year, I actually felt what it felt like for people to feel like it wasn't worth living. I felt like that at one point. I felt like it's just, this is it. I don't have anything, I'm going to lose it all, and it's not worth living. I didn't even, when you look at it, it's like, everything that I established for 28 years of my life, how did it even get to that? Because I've never had any, problems or, abusive behaviors growing up. So I'm like, how did it even get to that? And you kind of replay that in your mind when you see the video. And, and I know what it felt like to not want to live anymore. But I realized, I couldn't just, check out on my family. I couldn't check out on my 3-year-old daughter. I know what it felt like to grow up without a father. So how can I turn my back on my family at this moment? Some people probably will never forgive my actions, but I think that every step that I took going forward right now, over time, I want to be able to rewrite the script to tell my daughter, that Daddy made the worst decision of his life. I understand why, maybe a few teams or teams that shy away from me. It's a privilege. It truly is a privilege to play in the NFL. And there's no set in stone whether you're going to get a second chance or not. But like I said, my hope and faith and, and everything else that, I'm doing in my life, I'm just really hopeful for a second chance.
Beautiful little girl right there. Stephen A., does Ray Rice deserve a second chance?
He absolutely deserves a second chance. I don't think there's any question about that. And first of all, I want to give props to my colleague and friend Jamel Hill for sitting down, talking to him, doing an outstanding interview. She deserves a lot of credit. Congratulations. Keep on doing it. I didn't need to see the interview to know that Ray Rice deserves a second chance. There are people in our society and there are people in the NFL who have done some really, really heinous things. And they are still employed by the NFL. And if they can be employed by the NFL, so could Ray Rice. So we get that out the way. But the more important point to be mentioned here is that there are things in life that transpire that can easily be labeled a teachable moment. And when I think about Ray Rice and what he's endured, what his wife, Janae Palmer Rice, has endured. She's with him. She married him. She loves him. They have a child together. And I love the fact that they showed in the footage the child. Because we're so quick at times in our society to sit there and sort of like pull a plug on somebody and their life. Well, what about the little girl? What about Janae Palmer Rice, who doesn't deserve to have the plug pulled on her? What about Ray Rice? He's 28 years old. As reprehensible and heinous as his act was, the fact of the matter is that his comeuppance has arrived. He's paid a really, really hefty price for it, and now we move on. He's 28. He's got his whole life ahead of him. And if you want to sit up there and close the book on him, and that's your standard, you're going to have to get rid of a lot of people in our society. And I just don't think that that's the way that we should be thinking about things. Ray Rice has displayed an incredible level of contrition. We know how his wife feels about him because she has stood by him. And you see that little girl, all she knows is that's her daddy. How is she gonna be taken care of? Yes, it is a privilege to play in the NFL. It's also a privilege to coach in the NFL. It's also a privilege to be an executive in the NFL. It's a privilege to be an owner, a commissioner in the NFL. And that ain't the only heinous act that has occurred. And we've given a lot of people second chances, and I think he deserves it just so long as he understands that a lot of people out here believe the biggest reason his second chance hasn't arrived yet isn't even because of that. It's because of the 3 yards per carry he averaged in his last year in Baltimore. There was some considerable slippage that people saw in his game.
There was.
I think that's a big factor here. You're wondering, is he worth the risk primarily because of his game as opposed to not wanting to give him a second chance? I think most people are smart enough to recognize this young man deserves a second chance. Or can he play?
For the record, he does say he was hurt through that 660-yard year that he had that last year in Baltimore.
That's right. And he was known to play hurt.
This is a tricky issue because in no way do either of us, and either three of us, want to come across as defending what he did or trying to exonerate him for what he did. But I am with you. I would like to see some team at least give him a shot on one of these practice fields just to see if he could make the club. And I'm going to point out, speaking of this Buffalo team, that there's a guy named Richie Incognito somewhere out there right now. He's the starting guard for the Buffalo Bills. And when I read what he did to that female volunteer at that Dolphins golf tournament, turned my stomach. Is it on the same level as what happened in that elevator? We could argue that all day. But that turned my stomach too. And when I listened to Ray Rice with Jamel, he is now beyond contrite, right? Beyond penitent. He is devastatingly hard on himself to the point of he's saying he considered taking his own life. Is it worth even going on? And it didn't come across in the interview we just saw like he was seeking sympathy. I could be wrong about that, but I'm having to take him at his word. He is now making it, he says, a lifelong crusade to speak out against the evils of domestic abuse and violence. So again, I'm having to. How many people do you know who know Ray Rice? I know a lot. I've talked to a lot.
I've never heard a negative word about him.
Seriously. And I would tell you, if I heard anyone say, well, you got to watch him, he's not always genuine. No, I've never heard that.
Never.
So again, did he make an enormous mistake? Yes, he did. Has he paid a severe price for it? Yes. Is it time for somebody just to say, hey, try to make our team? It'd be fine with me. I think it'd be fine with you.
There's no way on earth you could tell me that there are 90 running backs in the NFL better than Ray Rice. I think that Ray Rice can make a roster, okay? But I also think if there's a negative, and it has nothing to do with that interview, because, again, I'm proud to see where he's at. I wish him nothing but the best. I think he deserves a second chance, and I co-sign on every single syllable that Skip Bayless uttered. But I think it's important to recognize this, too. To me, outside of striking his then fiancée and then wife, the biggest mistake he made was throwing the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, Steve Bisciotti, under the bus. Now, you're the owner. It's a public relations nightmare. It's something that had absolutely nothing to do with the owner. It didn't have anything to do with Ozzie Newsome. Yeah. You understand? And in an effort to sort of save yourself, you threw them under the bus by highlighting how you had told them the truth about everything when they were saying no. But they were saying no because they didn't need to be in the eye of the storm because the momentum had swelled so enormously that everybody was in a line of fire. And this is a billionaire owner that literally sat up there and texted you and said, I got you. Yeah. I got you. You're going to be a Raven for life. We'll work through this. And Ray Rice threw him under the bus just to sit there and acknowledge, I was honest. This is a billionaire owner that's trying to help you for a mistake that you made that had nothing to do with the football team, had nothing to do with him. The reason I bring that up, Skip, as so poignant is because there is no doubt in my mind that if that had not happened, Ray Rice would be a Baltimore Raven right now. I firmly believe he would have been on the Baltimore. Remember, in the aftermath of the video, we saw people outside of the stadium in Baltimore wearing his jersey and saying he's one of ours. He made a mistake. You know, not some. Well, there's always going to be some. There's always going to be some again. But we saw people out there. And the way he is such a pillar of that community with his philanthropy and they would have opened their arms to him eventually. He made that mistake, and I think that's where he needs to correct it.
Molly, would you be okay at this point with him getting a second chance?
One thing I just want to point out, Justin Forsett did step in nicely, though.
He did.
For the Ravens. Yes. So again, in that system, he did what he had to do, right? And I think you always allude to we're the country of second chances, and seeing his daughter and his wife, and I think going through that process, he comes across as genuine to me and remorseful. I would give him a shot, but this would be the last shot.
Sure.
And then we're done. In terms of that issue.
It's fair.
On the football side, I don't know. He's out there in Stanford training. We'll see what he still has in the tank if anybody wants to pick him up. You talked about it being a privilege. It's a privilege for us to cover the NFL, right? And be here at Bill's training camp today. Coming up, though, we switch to the association. Will this be Kobe's last year? He's not sure. We'll get into what this means for the Lake Show. First take from Bill's camp.